So welcome everyone to Mental Health Awareness Week webinar on the two-way connection between your mind and movement. My name's Joel Goodrell, and I'm the founder and CEO here at MYNDUP. And I actually created MYNDUP because of my own mental health journey and story. When counseling didn't work for me, it was actually coaching that saved and changed my life. And I set up MYNDUP to show the world there's no single solution to mental health. You've got to pick what's right for you at that point in your life. That's going to help you. Today's webinar is actually going to be split into three key themes. And the reason that I'm here today, and this topic means so much to me, is because over the years, I've actually incorporated movement into boosting my own mental health. And I've actually developed over the years, working with some of my life and executive coaches, tools and techniques that have actually changed my life and that I implement on a weekly basis. And I'm excited to share those with you today. But what I'm even more excited about today is that we have an industry expert on the call, Richard Turner, who's a high performance coach and also qualified personal trainer. So Rich, do you want to give a quick introduction on yourself?
Thanks, Joel. First off, great to hear how you've implemented that, and I'm sure we'll discuss a little bit more of that in detail. But hi everybody, my name's Rich. I've got a background in sports science. I've got a degree in sports science and coaching. And I've played sport since the age of 8, and that's kind of driven me into the health and fitness industry. I've been a qualified personal trainer and movement specialist for the past 10 years, working with clients and delivered over 5,000 personal training sessions. 5 years ago, I created a wellbeing company to go into the corporate space and offer help for employees to improve both their physical and mental health and overall well-being. And that obviously just involved on that journey of reflection and running a business. I qualified as a high performance coach, helping people perform at their best. And to do that, I think there's lots of different elements in that, which is both kind of your behaviors and your mindsets. And obviously I'm one of the MYNDUP coaches, which you can kind of book in and work with me on the platform.
Amazing. Thanks, Rich. Before we kick off the webinar as well, we do have a Q&A box, so feel free to put any questions you have throughout the webinar, and then there's a dedicated Q&A session at the end where we'll pick those up. The recording and slides will be emailed to yourselves, so everyone on this call who signed up, as well as your HR and L&D departments as well, and they'll be able to circulate. And then at the end, we always love feedback and improving, so please do let us know in the survey, which will pop up at the end, how we did as well. So just to kick things off, I'd really love to know, we're just going to launch a poll, actually. You'll see that on the screen. How have you found movement affects you? And you'll see here a host of different questions you can answer. And we'll just give you a minute to fill those in. I can already see people doing that. Rich, you just want to give us some insight into how it affects you, obviously being, from the mental side as a coach and a personal trainer as well with the physical side?
For me, it has a few different benefits. And I also think, and we'll get onto this later on, the different exercises I do have a few different kind of impacts on me. Getting to the gym creates kind of clarity when I'm doing those gym sessions. So if I don't train and I'm not working out, I don't have that same kind of focus, motivation, clarity in mind. So for me, it's definitely around, I need to do it to feel focused and motivated.
Yeah, definitely. I think they say, happy body, happy mind, probably the most common saying. So yeah, we've got just some of the results from the poll. We've got over a third of people say that they feel happier after moving. Like what you said, Richard, we've got 14% feeling more motivated. Less stress and more energy come in actually tied second at 23%. 2% of people don't feel any benefit, and 4% of people don't exercise. So I think we'll have lots to share actually for every cohort there with everyone who's answered. So I'll just end the poll now.
I think it's really interesting as well to see the differences between how people feel, which I think we'll obviously discuss throughout, right? But it has different impacts. The benefits are vast.
Definitely. And just to kick that off, we're going to start with theme 1, which is why movement is important for your mental well-being. And Rich, given your sort of expertise in this area, do you want to talk us through some of the sort of research and sort of clinical trials even that have gone on in this space?
Yeah, 100%. I think the most important bit to do first is have a quick glance at some of the research on and the stats around mental health. So we go to the next slide for us. This is the statistics around mental health, and then for the majority of you here, you probably would have seen this and known some of this stuff. But 72% of people have experienced some sort of stress over the past 4 years. 17% or 1 in 6 have people have experienced depression and experience of depression on a yearly basis. 79% of us in the UK or employees within the UK experience burnout. And then 1 in 4 people have experienced mental health issues. And I've put down just a couple where I just remember a couple of kind of other ones when it comes to movement, which I think is really important and correlates and with some of this information you're seeing here. 1 in 3 men and 1 in 2 women are not active enough for good health. And I think that correlates to what we're talking about here and how maybe that can impact and why we're seeing some of these results. And then 26% of adults in the UK are obese. So it just shows that we actually maybe need to be moving more and looking after that side of our well-being as well. And actually, this could be a big part of the impact on our mental health. I wanted just to share those stats as well. But really nicely, there's a couple of really good pieces of research that have come out that support the impact of movement and exercise on mental health. And so the first one here is was done in 2017 and found that when they compared exercise to antidepressants and exercise on people with depression, that exercise alone had a bigger benefit to a person's mental health and their depression levels than both the antidepressant group and the antidepressant and exercise group. So this shows you how important exercise is for our mental health and for when we're suffering with depression. The next study here is done in 2018, and it kind of found the impact of exercise as a viable treatment managing anxiety. They concluded that higher intensity exercise had more benefits than lower intensity exercise. And so that, so we put that into layman's terms, people go into the gym and working at a higher rate or higher intensity and working harder, that had a bigger impact on someone's anxiety and mental health than potentially going out for a walk or doing some hobbies or wherever that lighter intensity exercise. So it's not only is exercise good, the harder you do your exercise, the bigger impact it has on our mental health as well.
Interesting. And Rich, by higher intensity, do you mean things like cardio when you're going for longer, or do you mean it could be bench press and you're just going harder on that exercise?
I think for me it means a combination of like rather than using intensity consistently, but that the effort you're putting into it. So if you're going for a run, how hard are you pushing that run? If you're having a workout in the gym, how hard are you working in the gym? Are you doing like supersets or kind of lots of exercises at once with less rest? That to me is the intensity of a workout or of the piece of exercise you're doing.
Yeah, no, makes sense. No, really interesting. And, from a personal perspective, exactly what you said there on the stats. I mean, back during COVID, I actually just didn't do any exercise when we're in lockdown, and I was just working 12 to 16-hour days. And what happened was I started to get injured. I started to get wrist pain. I started to get back pain and issues. And that actually put me into a real low mood and depressive state, because I then stopped, seeing people. I stopped going out. I stopped even, exercising at all, because I was worried about injuring myself even more. And it just got me into a bad cycle. And exactly like what you said, I then, really took a big look at that, and I implemented, personal training, a lot of mobility work for my back and wrists and strengthening work. And that actually took me from a really low point to a point where, I felt fantastic physically every day, which meant mentally I felt better, but then I could push myself harder. I could do more stuff, more intense stuff. And even when I was working, I would get injured less as well. So mentally, I was in a much better place.
I think it just shows you how important actually the body is. I think it's kind of overlooked as well. So exercise is super important. But if you can't do exercise because you're carrying an injury or the body's not allowing you to do that intensity, then that will have that impact on the intensity of the workouts or the intensity of the exercise you're doing, which then negatively impacts potentially the impact on our mental health. So
Yeah.
it's super important not only that we do this exercise, but we look after our bodies for us to continue doing that. If you look at elite sports people, when they're training, they're not only training hard, but the most important thing is that they recover well so that they can continuously keep playing at that level.
Yeah.
It's the same for us as professionals, right? We need to be able to keep performing at our best in work, in the jobs we're doing, to supply and support our families or our life. But if we get injured, that stops us from happening. And so being able to look after our body and our mind is super important.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the one thing, the physio was teaching me, and the sports massage therapist as well, was that you need to have a good balance,
Mm,
because no one's body, if you're working sort of 60 nowadays and not moving or getting up from your chair every so often, it's hard for anybody to take that,
mm.
no matter how strong you are. So it's all about that balance.
Yeah, balance is so important to life, let alone training. When we talk about training, and when I work with clients, we're always looking, okay, we want to improve and implement movement and cardio, but also we need to implement the strength training. We need to implement the joints and the body being challenged through both range of motion, but also strength, because that will build good, strong bodies and good, strong internal bodies as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. And just sort of taking that a step further, Rich, one of the big questions we get are, what are the exercises you can do? How do they span? Is it just going to the gym? Is it not? And be really good to get your thoughts on that.
I think there are so many different types, and I think now, and you see, if you've been in the health of the fitness industry for a while, they're things that peaks and troughs of interest. At the moment, we're going through this cycle of high rocks. Running's become very popular. CrossFit was a really popular kind of sport or exercise. For me, it's all exercise is super important. So wherever it is, and the most important thing here is, and the biggest takeaway is finding something you enjoy doing. There's number one. But then you trying to break this up, or for easy matters, break this up into three different sections. Cardiovascular, something to improve our lungs and our heart and get that working, get the blood pumping around the body. Resistance training or strength training, making the joints and the muscles work. And then movement, just general movement. The more we move, the better. But between these, if you've got a good mix of all three, or you can only do one or two of those, it's better than doing nothing at all. And what I would call is movement. So cardio obviously is stuff like running, swimming, cycling, things for a long period of time where you don't really stop. You could even add, like, high rocks could be part of that, although there is strength elements to it. Resistance training is movement against a weight, and building strength within joints and muscles. So get into the gym or doing kind of yoga could be part of that resistance training as well. Anything creating a force. And then movement can be anything, right? And I always, when I do this and when I think about this, think about sport, and sport can fit into a kind of all three categories. So I play hockey, I play basketball, I play cricket as a kid, everything really. But they all have different elements of strength and requirements there. But the main reason why I picked up basketball as a hobby was because it's going to test me cardiovascularly. I'm not a fan of going for a run. I don't really enjoy kind of plodding along a road or jumping on a bike. So I needed to find my cardiovascular in a different format. So it shows that actually you can do some of these bits without having to do the traditional elements of it. But it could also be gardening. Movement could be classed as gardening, hobbies, getting out for a walk, anything which just gets the body moving, has an impact on our mental health.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you've summed it up perfectly, because there is really no one size fits all. It's, like with movement, you might not want to do one thing every single day of your life. You want to balance it, split it up, pick what's right for you at that point. I think that's key as well.
Yeah, I think another take home I talk to a lot of people. It's easy to go out for a walk. It's easy to do some hobbies. It might even be easy to kind of maybe do some cardio. But I think first off, the balance of all three is really important. as I said. But actually, I think people miss the resistance training and how important that is to our kind of longevity. And so when I work with clients, especially through coaching, trying to understand them the importance of exercise, is kind of questioning how do they want their life to look once they're retired or once they've got their grandchildren around? Do you want to be able to continue playing and moving with them, or do you want to be in a Zimmer frame on a walking stick? And so I always reflect back to my grandparents. My grandparents lived in a bungalow, and we were on a walking stick and in a Zimmer frame, and then in a wheelchair by the age of kind of 75 all the way through to 85. And I put that down to, and it's not scientific research and it's not a study I've done, but they didn't have any stairs. They weren't challenged through building strength going up and down stairs. They were just kind of plodding around a bungalow. So I think that just for me showed the importance of actually staying strong as we get older. And if you can do exercise, not just going up and down stairs, but if you can do exercise to build that strength safely, obviously, and as you get older, there's going to be more things which are kind of more important for you to do, then I think that's super important.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there's just one thing I wanted to share really was on, how you can actually boost not only motivation, but also your performance during an exercise. Exactly like what you said, Rich, there's just so many. And how do you do that? And they were one of the sort of key questions I think people as well wanted to hear from the webinar. And the way that I've sort of developed it myself is by using music therapy and visualization. And the way you do it is you pick a song firstly, and that song relates to the exercise you're doing. So, Rich, you mentioned, cardio, so you'd play more high intensity drum and bass or fast rap. If it's, more resistance training or more calmer of a workout, you could play something more melodic or even classical.
Mm,
And then it's about then putting your headphones in, closing your eyes, and then breathing.
mm,
So breathing big diaphragm breaths. So that means expanding your diaphragm on the way out and then de-expanding it on the way in. And you take a few of those and then breathe normally. Now, the way that you use visualization to actually enhance your performance during an exercise is that you firstly visualize yourself doing the exercise, and you visualize yourself not only doing it normally as business as usual, but you visualize yourself doing it better and better and better, and you reaching the highest point of your personal best on it, really sweating it out, or, that could be a time, that could be how intense you're doing it as well. And you see yourself in that intensity. And what that does, and I don't know if you've come across this before, Rich, is it implants a memory in your brain of you actually having that success. So you've already had a dress rehearsal. So when you actually go and do the exercise itself, you're more likely to be able to achieve that success because it's like normal to you.
mm,
It's sort of like priming your brain.
mm. Yeah, 100%. I think visualizations, when I think about visualization and exercise, my brain takes me to the Winter Olympics. When you see the skiers on the top of the mountain running through each corner. And I think it's
Yeah.
the same when we think about exercise in general, right? Like if you can see yourself getting the personal best, or kind of running faster than you have done before and achieving that goal, it's going to be more motivating to get there. And also, you have more chance of getting there. And when it comes back to the music piece, for my running friends out there, I know that the tempo of the music can also play on actually how fast you run. So actually finding the right music and the circadian of that music can help you push you, and you begin to run to the beat. So if you're playing something slower, you might find actually you're being a bit slower. But if you've got something at a certain beat per minute, you're going to be more likely to run faster. As I said, I don't run that much, so I can't give you the exact numbers.
Yeah. No, definitely. And then the second part, boost motivation. I think that's one of the key questions we continuously hear. How do you just get motivated? And you can do that with music therapy and visualization by not just visualizing the exercise, visualizing yourself coming away from the exercise and finishing it, and
Mm,
then visualizing the benefits. That could
mm,
be people coming up to you and saying, wow, you've lost weight, or, you just look physically fit, and that kind of feedback. Or it could even be, you feeling just physically with a smile on your face and just you feeling your best and pushing yourself harder each and every time. So visualizing those benefits after are going to motivate you to want to achieve them more and more and more.
yeah, 100%. And I think we're going to discuss this in the next piece, right? But it's coming back to that why. Why are you doing it? Remembering that reward, and the value of of exercise to you.
Yeah, no, definitely. And just going on to the third section, so it's how to fit movement into our busy lives. I think it is one of the most common things I come across because everyone's so busy. How do you even put it in? You put it in your calendar and then you ignore it. Or the other thing is just things just keep coming in with just life. Life just happens and it's just difficult to maintain a good consistency. So Rich, do you want to talk us through some of the goal setting sort of tools and techniques people can use?
Yeah, but I think before we go jump onto that, I think that time element and the challenge around time can be really a big problem for people. And so before we jump into the kind of understanding goals, understanding our motivation, it's looking at actually finding the timings that best work for you as well. And so you kind of said, and I know you're kind of build on that, but for some people, finding when they need to train or when they're going to be best at doing it is super important. For some people, I know need to train in the morning because if it gets to the afternoon, work begins to pick up, excuses begin to happen. You begin to get tired and lethargic. So that actually the 5 o'clock after work or the lunchtime doesn't happen. So getting done in the morning is the thing that they need to do to make sure they do it. They might not enjoy it much, but if they can get it done, it's done. It's out of the way then, and they go into the day well. Myself, I train in the afternoon, so I find actually I can get through the day, and sometimes I still get oh, you're busy or you're tired or whatever it is, but actually it's so part of my routine now that actually I kind of bookend my day to switch off for the evening. So I think finding the timings for when you train is important to how you fit it in. And then the second part of that is not all exercise needs to be an hour and a half, 2 hours long. It can be 20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
You can get really good workout in 20 minutes. The government guidelines are 150 minutes of low intensity or 75 minutes worth of high intensity exercise. So actually, can we get that in over a week? And 30 minutes of intense or 20 minutes of intense exercise is just that or over that. So you're doing more than what the government guidelines are and more of what the potential of the population are doing.
Yeah. So it's basically doing it in the kind of easiest way possible for your own life and then ingraining it in just to your centered routine.
Yeah, creating a routine is super
Yeah.
important. And that leads really nicely into the kind of the goal setting and habits. So obviously, as a coach and as a personal trainer, you're always working towards a goal, and this can be a really great motivator. And you see it from many places. People might have a goal around their appearance, but they might also have a goal around health, and we see this a lot. Is people might have had a health risk or maybe going through mental health challenges, and actually they're looking to do something due to a response, and so they need to achieve something. And so one of the key things we do is set some important goals. Where are they going? That there helps them see a kind of end line, as you said, around the visualization, which really helps. But also it allows us to set some smaller actions to allow them to get some goals. And those smaller actions and the success behind those really helps them achieve it. But hear about if you're struggling to then achieve or do those habits you're setting, this is stolen from James Clear's habit cycle or habit wheel, and he talks about 4 different elements. And so the first part is kind of the cue, and what is going to motivate you or kind of remind you to do something. So it might be a reminder in your phone, it might be a visualization, so it might be your shoes in the doorway to your bedroom door reminding you. You might have your kit out. So whatever that cue might be, it's putting that in a really obvious place and making it like something you can't ignore. Craving. What's the craving behind the habit and or the exercise you're going to do? What are you craving and what response are you craving? And then the reward, remembering what the reward is to the habit, because it's not the habit you're doing for itself, it's the reward at the end, and reminding yourself of how I'm going to feel whilst doing it and at the end, and the benefits of it all. And this is where kind of understanding our whys. Why do we train? And at the very beginning, we ask people that poll around what does exercise do for you? How do you feel after exercise? This is where reward fits in really nicely, because it's reminding that, oh, okay, I'm going to feel so much better afterwards because I'm going to be more motivated. I'm going to feel happier, probably nicer to be around, more confident in myself because I've done exercise. And then the response, in regards to response, is either there to teach you something or to satisfy you. So understanding the response you only get from the habit you're doing. So understanding those kind of 4 sections is super important to creating setting goals to start with, and then putting habits in place and then sticking to those habits, because exercise can be really hard to implement, especially if you don't enjoy it to start with.
Yeah. That's amazing, actually. And I take it, you probably go through similar frameworks with your clients. And are you kind of going through this sort of framework and then creating sort of a success plan or action plan to achieve each thing in milestones?
Yeah, so obviously setting goals, I always look kind of big picture. Where's our North Star? In 10 years' time, how do you want life to look? And I break that into kind of personal, work, health, and family. Build that North Star so you've got a driving force. And then you can break it down into shorter terms. What do 3 years look like? What did we achieve by the end of the year? And then in the next 90 days, what actions and habits do we need to do to achieve a goal for 90 days? Where are we going? And that allows us to then stay a bit more rigid, following a process, achieving some of the goals and habits we're trying to implement, which allows us to kind of get to where we're going.
Yeah. No, amazing. Makes sense. And the other thing that, I've suffered with myself, but also see, colleagues and friends as well, is how to switch off after a meeting.
Mm.
And I'm just going to share with you actually something that has been quite life changing for me that I've developed over the years. And it'd be really good to get your thoughts on this as well, Rich, if you've seen it. But the thing that happens with me, if I've got a big deadline tomorrow morning, I'm still thinking about it when I'm, say, going to the gym or at a tennis match, or if I've had an argument with, you could have an argument with your manager or one of your colleagues, and you're still overthinking about it in hypothetical scenarios of the future, of the past, and what's going to happen, and it's really hard to concentrate. And some people take it to such an extreme where they get to their activity or exercise, pull up in the car park, or even walk into the gym and just turn back out because they can't, think, and they
Mm.
can't concentrate. And they talk about you need to forget your past worry and future worry and think about the present moment. And the best way to do that is by, if there is a situation, let's say it's a tight deadline for tomorrow, you want to note down, pull out your phone or your notepad when you're in that state of overthinking, write down the top 3 things that you have control over and an action plan. So that could be text your manager after your movement to let them know you're on the case. It could be, send that email off at 8:30 tomorrow morning to let your team know what's coming, and then do the last bit of research at 9:30 in the morning before you submit. And then you can be confident that you've had a plan of action. You then put that away, you go and do your movement, you come out of the gym or your movement, your tennis match, whatever it is, and you've got that plan of action there and then. So your mind is rested, and then you're physically better, in a better place after the movement as well, to then go and tackle it.
Yeah, I love that. And you can see how that works. I also think that works really nicely for sleep as well, which is another
Yeah.
big element to mental health. Like, you speak to people who struggle to sleep, it's because they have a lot of anxiety or worries, especially during busy periods, and when you have stressful kind of deadlines or public speaking, for example. That actually, if you can write down some of the things you have control over, allows you to go, actually, I'm dealing with this, I'm fine, I'm in a lot better situation, or stop the overthinking.
Yeah.
Um, can I ask you a question? We're going a bit off track, but
Yeah.
you're a golfer, right? You play golf.
Yeah. All
Yeah,
my
and,
life
and,
almost.
and, and at a very good level, right? How do you then? Golf's a very overthink or potentially overthinking sport. How then do you
Yeah.
do that during golf?
Yeah. So I've been in the cycle of still checking my emails on the golf course because I'm worried about something and I'm refreshing it every few seconds and can't even concentrate. So it's the same thing really. It's the way to put your phone away or detract yourself from technology is by having a plan of action, getting things off your chest, putting it down. And I do it by writing on my phone. You could talk to someone, the top 3 things as well, and then put it away. But I still use this on the golf course. And I think that's the key thing. It's you could use it for sleep. You can use it for any type of movement. Some of the tools and techniques, even you've shared today, even the goal setting can be used holistically, I think, across your whole life.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also think, going back to your point, like if you are in these stressful situations, I think doing what you just said is a fantastic tip. Um, but remembering that, like if you are in these moments of high stress, time being requested from you, exercise doesn't need to be an hour long. You can get a workout done, a really good workout done in 20 minutes, which involves cardiovascular, strength, and movement. And so when you are in those high stress moments, do those kind of practical thinking about getting rid of some of that worries, and stop the overthinking. Also, fitting something in. You've won an excess, and I always ask my clients, especially my young athletes who are going through different kind of A levels and stuff like that. How do you perform at your best? What do you have to do? And for the majority of them, they all say exercise. And so when you're looking at a stressful situation, the thing you have to go and do, understand how you perform at your best. And that normally includes exercise and good sleep and good eating, right? Putting those things in place, along with managing the stresses, will lead to positive outcomes.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't think you have to dive in all in one go either and just do an hour of running. You could break it down, like you said, 20 minutes, or even start off with more low intensity stuff and build up to high intensity.
Yeah, yeah. 100%. It could be even go for a nice long walk, right?
Yeah.
Could be anything. It could be, there's so many different options.
Yeah. No, definitely. Well, I know the questions are sort of racking up in the Q&A box. Do you have anything else, Rich, to talk about how to switch off, before an exercise, before we move to the Q&A?
Um, no, I think we've covered it in regards to like the visualization stuff, and then kind of the control list, right? I think that's such a good tool, and it's such a good tool in regards to stress and anxiety anyway. That if you can implement that, which and it allows you then to do exercise, you're winning on both forms.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, amazing. Well, let's go to the Q&A, everyone. So I'll just pull that up here. We've already had some questions come through, which is fantastic. So first one, where are some starting points for people who are feeling busy and stretched, who want to get into exercise for the first time? It can feel like an extra commitment on top of everything else. What do you think, Rich?
Start small, in regards to both time requirement and what you're doing. We might probably be my kind of first recommendation. If you
Yeah,
don't have the time and you are being stretched, what's the smallest thing you can do, um, that will help you get going?
yeah,
And James Clear in his book Atomic Habits talks about a piece of research that got somebody just going in there to do warming up, a warm up, and that warm up was 5 minutes, and that's it. Just do that, and if you've done that, you completed. You can tick the exercise off your box. But for the majority, once we get going, our brains moving, we want to carry on. I would take that one step further, and when I struggle to be motivated, well, today I'm just going to do some squats or some bench press, or normally it's in the gym where I struggle to get motivated sometimes. Then I'm just going to go and do that. It's going to be a relatively easy session. But by the time I've got going, I'm in there, I've done the first 2-3 sets, I'm going, okay, what's going to the next bit? So maybe it's just breaking it down into the smallest action.
definitely. And I think keeping it simple is key, especially if you're really busy, like picking one thing and
Yeah,
then, doing it a few times and getting into it before you introduce, yoga and
yeah,
hit
yeah,
class and this and that. So I think that's key. And then the other thing I see from people that are very busy as well that fits quite nicely is, booking into a class so you don't have to do
yeah.
anything. You kind of just turn up, you do the class, then you come out.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. That's such a great tip as well. And find a friend who's going to motivate you to get going.
Yeah,
Try and get somebody on the same wavelength as you. If it's the same, or if you're struggling to be stretched, maybe find someone who's super motivated to start with. They're the same kind of level. You don't want somebody just running off and doing bits where they're leaving you behind.
yeah,
Um, I think that's a super important tip. And I love the classes are a great motivator, because it's you don't have to create it yourself. Or you can just go there and it's being done. There's no control. There's no thinking about it. Do this, do this, do this. Wicked done.
yeah, definitely. And Rich, just touching on some of the statistics you showed earlier,
Mhm.
someone's asked, interesting, more men are active than women. Do you know why that is? They've said, I wonder if it might be something to do with labor division.
Yeah, I would say that would be. I don't know, but I would say potentially it might be the types of jobs which are included in that.
Yeah,
A lot of men obviously do manual labor work, and that obviously is a very active job.
yeah, no, definitely. And we got some really other interesting questions actually. One is, and probably that I struggle with as well. Do you have any suggestions of how to get out in nature when it's bad weather? You know, you don't like the cold. It's tough to get outside. It could be raining. What do you
Um,
do with your clients, Rich? What do you suggest?
yeah, good question. Because obviously I'm normally in a gym, or we're doing on some programming, um, and so I'm normally in a nice warm place, and my own training's there. But I guess playing sport might be one. So I play hockey, and we play through the winter, and so having that um, group goal. So maybe
Yeah.
finding a team or a group who maybe do hiking groups or hiking walks or kind of adventurous walks in nature might be the
Mm,
way to go to help you get going. Um, but then kind of remembering the why you're doing it. I think that's
yeah.
the most powerful thing. What's the purpose? What's our vision? What's our North Star? I'm doing it because it's for my health. It's for the way I'm going to feel
Yeah.
afterwards.
And I think also there are things you can find that are indoors, you know, things like indoor rock climbing,
Yeah.
tennis. They've even got golf sort of simulators now indoors. So I think, you know, finding that leisure center, finding that space, finding that group class, even like a table tennis is near me, for instance, indoors. So I think you've got to be able to adapt, I think, to the environment you're in, really.
Yeah. And if you're going out for because you want to be out in nature, it's remembering that's why you're doing it. If you're trying to get out just to do more exercise, then I think yeah, get it doesn't need to be outside, right? If you are because you want to connect with nature a bit more, then
Yeah.
that would be yeah, maybe yeah, and dress up warm, a coat on.
Yeah.
It's better to be hot than cold, right?
Yeah.
When you're doing some of this stuff,
Definitely.
getting a sweat
Um,
on's not bad for you.
yeah. No, another really good question actually is weightlifting good for mental health? But this can be quite intimidating for a depressed amateur. Any tips? What do you think, Rick?
Weightlifting's fantastic for your mental health.
Yeah.
Uh, it's probably the I find that has a bigger impact on my mental health, dealing with anxiety and stress than my sport. Um, Partly because of the worry about performing at a good enough level, and so you get the anxiety and stress of I'm playing this sport because it's good for me, but I want to perform and do really well and not mess up for my team. So yeah, mental health. Strength training is fantastic. Um, there are gyms which maybe are less intimidating. Um, I would then go reflect back on the buddy system. Have you got a buddy which maybe goes to the gym already?
Yeah.
The class system as well. And if all of that's a bit, you don't have that opportunity, um, I would maybe look to do kind of like I don't know a month worth of personal training to give you some advice to set up a program for you, but it's also just to get into the gym and feel safe in the environment. Um,
Mm.
I'm lucky, and I was gonna say no gym is a scary place once you're there, but I'm lucky that I've not experienced those potentially scary gyms. And I know there are people you see it on social media who are just super rude and unwelcoming. So finding the right gym as well, which I think is super important. I'm super lucky, but maybe that's where the personal trainer helps. And
Yeah.
maybe looking at reviews on their websites or on Google.
Yeah. And someone's just added into the chat actually, just to add to that, is group classes. They've said
Yeah.
it's a great way to get to know people, reducing gym anxiety.
Yeah.
Um, and obviously you're not totally alone. You've got some good guidance.
Yeah, I think CrossFit is fantastic for that.
Yeah.
CrossFit because it's such a community. And yes, it's a higher ticket, so it's a little bit more expensive to join, but you'll
Yeah.
get in kind of low number groups of kind of one-to-one coaching through some really good strength training movements.
Yeah.
And depending on the quality of the coaching and the quality of the program, you're still going to get everything you need in regards to strength training. You work on metabolic conditioning and your cardio, but you're in a really nice community. Everybody's so supportive, um, and it's less scary. I mean, the first couple of times might be scary, but that's like everywhere, right? You walk into a new office or you walk into um, a new kind of team. It's going to be a little bit scary to start with, but places like CrossFit and the good gyms and good personal trainers will kind of make that
Yeah.
less scary straight away.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of fear of the unknown. As soon as you're there, you're kind of, wow, I'm glad I came.
Yeah, yeah. Once you
Yeah.
once you get going in a
Yeah.
great community, it's the best thing you can ever do, I think.
Definitely. Really good question here, probably for more your personal training side. Is we spoke about high intensity exercises near the beginning, when you were speaking about that, Rich. Now, what do you suggest for those who can't engage with exercise, due to disabilities? What
Mhm.
what can they do? What sort of things do you suggest?
Really good question. And without knowing the situation of the person, the recommendation could be quite tough. But going back to what you can do, and I think social media can be a really crappy place sometimes, or have some negative elements on there. But you can find some really kind of inspiring um, movements and training modalities to allow for people with disabilities. And the way people train, I see somebody who's in a wheelchair doing deadlifts because she was sat on a chair or a bench.
Yeah.
And so there is things you can do. And I think she had like 100 kilos in her hands, and so you can still get strong. Um, and so there might be something you can do, and it's just about finding that and maybe getting the support, finding help, inquire with a personal trainer, and inquire with somebody who has some knowledge in how to help. That would be the second piece of advice.
Yeah. No, thanks, Rich. Really helpful. We've got a different question now on the advice of Ben. How do you feel the benefits of meditation more? So this is something that I used to struggle with, actually. I thought, I can't be bothered to do that meditation. I'm just going to sit there. I'm going to be bored after 2 minutes. And I couldn't even get through 2 or 3 minutes, right? So I actually found guided meditation or visualizations are brilliant.
Mhm,
And my coach even she actually records them she actually does the visualization on the session I have with her
mhm,
and then sends them to me after. And then I can just go through that again and again. And it's just being guided through. So you don't have to do anything.
mhm,
I think that's key, but also there's so many different types of meditation, visualization. Some meditation is just with complete silence, others is just guided with someone's voice, others with music. Other meditation is with visualization, you thinking about the success of yourself in the future, visiting your future self, reliving past moments. So it's about what's going to work for you. There's not really one size fits all because there's so many different types for you to go through. And it's about trial and error and testing those types.
Yeah, great answer. I also think when we bring this back to exercise, yoga is a really good, and stretching, yoga and stretching, and you can kind of call those the same kind of thing, but stretching is a little bit slightly different. It's less kind of flowy. I would use as a comparison,
Yeah.
but it's very kind of meditational mindfulness in its modality. So I would maybe try that. You can always do things mindfully,
Yeah.
go out for a walk in nature, hits the walking exercise in nature, which would put you in space of the sunlight and fresh air. But if you begin to notice things as you're doing it, it's a, I mean, it's not the not meditation per se, but it's a form of mindfulness and meditation.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think nature is key. I think we actually did a one of the themes of last year was movement in nature.
Mhm,
So important for your mental health.
mhm.
Right, two questions in one now, Rich, just to test you.
Go on.
So is it beneficial to change how we exercise as we get older? For example, more strength training, and then also the best exercises for men approaching 50.
Oh, good question. Yes, it is beneficial to move more into strength training as you get older. Still have cardio, but definitely need to be doing strength training.
And could you just explain what you mean by strength training?
Um, Anything against a resistance. So um, it could be from the basic beginner. Could be like a squat with no weights. It could be a step up on a larger step. It could be a push up. It could be anything body weight. Um, and then you could be in the gym using a leg press. You're doing squats, lunges, Bulgarians, bench press, loads of different things. But anything against a force, against a weight, or which could be your weight or something, an object. Um, but then there's varying intensities. How long are you doing that for if you don't have the weights? There's so many different elements to it. But yeah, resistance, fighting against the resistance.
Yeah.
And the second question was the best exercises to do as you get to fit a male getting to 50.
Yeah.
Balance between all of them. As I said earlier on, and depending on how strong your body is and how ready your body is for that movement, squats, deadlift, bench press, a heavy row of like a body, and then some sort of conditioning or cardio, and that can be whatever you enjoy. I don't really advocate for people running as they get older. Some people can do it, but for a lot of people, I deal with a lot of injuries and a lot of people getting setbacks because of the heavy compounding on joints, on ankles, on knees, on hips.
Yeah.
You try to steer away from that. But if you're a runner and you've been doing it for a long time, then do it. Just manage volume.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'd be my advice.
Yeah, no, I'd relate to that. My body's just not built for running. I get knee problems kind of even straight away. So
Yeah,
I have to be quite careful.
yeah, 100%. And I think we spent, and it's probably a whole new topic, right? But we spent, if you're a 50-year-old man, you've spent nearly 30 years in a profession, and if you're like if you're an office-based worker, you spend the majority of your time sitting down in front of a computer, which then leads to bad posture and super tight hips and quads, which, like you said, leads to knee issues and hip and back issues. So as soon as you put that through load, it's only one way that's going to end.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's the importance of stretching as well,
Yeah.
like you just mentioned.
And moving through range. Like there's a lot of research coming out that stretching alone isn't the best form of creating mobility. Through
Right.
moving through range, so like when you're doing an exercise, I know one I always think of is like an RDL, when you kind of hinge over to touch your toes. You can do that, but when you get to that area of a stretch, you're pushing that consistently.
Yeah.
That will allow your muscles to stretch and grow longer but stay strong, which is super important to that.
Right. Interesting.
Mm.
Okay.
So yeah,
Amazing.
I don't do too much stretching. We
Yeah.
warm up, and for some clients they enjoy it, so you do a little bit here and there, but we make sure our clients move really well through a good range, like range of motion.
Yeah.
How far are they going in each one in a
Yeah.
safe capacity?
Right. Okay. Makes sense. Another really interesting question, probably one I've struggled with in the past. Any tips for exercising at your desk? So, those that are at their desk, 12, 14-hour days is tough, right? You're getting home late, got to have dinner. What do you think, Rich? What have you seen?
Um, Controversial, but you can't really exercise at your desk, I don't think. Like if you're looking at low intensity exercise, you're still not going to get exercise. It's like it's not going to be intense enough for it to be exercise. You can stretch, and there's bits you can do, like rotating. The thing about the spine, you need to kind of create movement in the spine. So bending, flexing, rotating, stretching the neck muscles out. So kind of head tilts up, down. You begin to open up your arms and your chest and create movement, but you're not going to really create the intensity for it to be benefit. Like you're going to get benefits from moving and not being stuck in one position and hopefully helping your posture, but you're not going to get the same mental health benefit as you would do if you were just to get up for 10-15
Yeah.
minutes, do a few exercises.
Yeah. I think it's about building in those times before work, a
Yeah,
lunchtime, getting up from your desk every 20, 30 minutes if you can, or after a meeting, even just to stretch your legs, or even after work or weekends.
yeah, I think you're so spot on. And when you said that, I reflected on it, and I was like, the people who are working the 14 to 16-hour days, unless you're a paramedic, like it's not life or death. Like you can give yourself a break. Like you're replaceable as an employee. So it's important that you put yourself first at some of these moments to make sure that you are doing things for you, and knowing that when you do that thing for you, you perform better for the reason you're worried, I guess. And I think just remembering that the two things, you're kind of really replaceable. So if you do get unwell, somebody's going to come in. So you need to make sure you're looking after yourself. And it's not
Yeah.
life or death unless you are in that kind of profession. Not life or death to do those 14 to 16 hours, because if you become unwell, then what's the point of having the job there? So look after you first.
Yeah. No, that's what we see. I mean, when people start getting burnout or mentally unwell or even physically,
Mm.
you start getting that sickness absence creeping in. Then also not just sickness absence, staff retention issues because people just need a whole change of scenery.
Yeah.
And that's what we've seen actually across some of our clients.
Well, when you and I always question when we look at kind of that lifestyle, question yourself when you get to 70 years old, when you get to 80, or when you're on your deathbed and you're reflecting on your life, do you want to say that's how you lived? Do you want to say that's I didn't actually have the best life I had because I spent 16 hours every day, 5 days, 6 days, 7 days a week in front of a computer, missing out on life, and family and like laughter and fun? Or do you want to say, actually, I created a really good balance and I looked after
Yeah.
myself. I've lived an extra 10, 15, 20 years because I did that first off, super important. And then second off, actually, I was present with family and friends and life.
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, you've hit it nail on the head. What we spoke about earlier, like balance is key because your body just can't take too much of one thing for prolonged periods of time.
Yeah. And why would you want to not do that stuff? That's for me the most
Mm,
important part of all of this, right?
yeah. So, got quite a few questions left. Let's see. We've got 7 minutes to go. So, next one is: do you use the Mandalorian's positive attitude as a role model?
Mandalorian, I've not seen that.
Okay.
I don't know. I know the I think it might be you talking about the Mandalorian Lego head above me, but um, I'm not sure. I can't tell.
Yeah, perfect. We might have to follow up with that one
Yeah,
after the webinar.
yeah.
Um, Next one you've touched on is weightlifting a healthy exercise. I think you agreed it was.
Oh, well, done correctly,
Yeah,
I personally think it's the most important thing.
right. Over cardio and over.
Balance,
Yeah,
so all of it. But I think as we grow older, like being able to move
yeah.
is important. Um,
Mm,
so yes, and you can create cardio through lifting weights, so you're still getting a very good benefit to your heart and lungs.
yeah,
Uh, but you still want to do something which is going to challenge you. Long
yeah,
walks, running, but you need a good base level of strength in the joints
yeah,
for longevity and injury, fight against injury.
yeah. Perfect. Also, we had a good comment of someone asked about meditation. Someone's put in the chat walking meditation, which is very interesting. I
Mm.
haven't come across that methodology before, actually. I don't know if you have, Rich.
Walking now, I think it kind of refers back to what we were talking about earlier on. It's that noticing thing whilst being out.
Yeah,
It's how
using your
I would that's
senses.
how I would perceive that anyway.
Yeah,
Because you can't
nice.
sit there in silence when you're walking around. So be that being mindful in nature, being mindful whilst being out for a walk, noticing.
Yeah,
You could even kind of have a bit of a question: how many birds of this type do you see? Maybe could be a part of that, or it's allowing your brain to really just kind of take in where feel like was it touch, sight, feel,
smell.
senses, yeah,
Yeah.
smell, all those kind of things.
Exactly, yeah. Mindfulness practices. Last couple now. How do we go about engaging people who are mentally unwell and not wanting to engage in movement? So this is something that I've actually suffered with recently. I actually recently lost my voice and I did lose a lot of confidence and mentally I became more paranoid and am I going to injure physically other parts of my body and stuff? And it was quite difficult, but I couldn't push myself during that period. I couldn't move in the same way I was before. So it was really incremental movements, slower movements, lower weights, just to make sure I was moving, but in the right way to prevent more injury. But I think to get the motivation to move as well is, the visualizations we spoke about. Sometimes you've just got to just push yourself through the resistance and do it, or even just visualize the benefits. And then, hopefully that can just kickstart you into making that first step to go. And I
Yeah,
think once you've made that first step, going again and again through being unwell is more likely as well.
yeah, 100%. Start small, start simple, get help,
Yeah.
get help, and that might not be professional like a personal trainer. It might be like a mental health, so the therapist support giving you the tips. But it could also just be having the help of a friend to help you get outside and do something, but start small. Like Rome wasn't built in a day, as they say, right? So get out, do 5 minutes, see that you'll feel the benefits of just doing that.
Yeah,
And once you've got those benefits, you'll build on that, right?
definitely. Start somewhere.
Yeah.
Um, Last question, Rich. Last two questions. For exercise to count or be sufficient, what should your heart rate range be?
That's a very good question because I think it depends on the modality. Um, and also what your heart your resting heart rate is already. And
Yeah,
so I'd say as long as it's elevated, and if you can get to over 100, it'd be great. It depends on your health risk. I would think about more about what you're doing more so than your heart rate.
yeah.
Like if you look at golf, for example, could be a really great example. You do when you play around a golf 4 hours, right? You're doing what 10,000, 20,000 steps.
You're doing a lot of
A
steps.
lot.
Yeah.
You move a lot, but your heart rate probably doesn't go too high throughout that.
No,
That's one
unless
of
you've
the
got
best.
adrenaline.
Yeah, unless you've got adrenaline or stress because you just hit the ball into the water 5 times. But your heart rate doesn't increase that high. But it's one of
Yeah,
the best forms of exercise because of the amount of movement. And actually, it burns a lot of calories in comparison to doing a half an hour cardio piece of exercise.
yeah.
So it depends on
Oh,
what.
perfect. And someone's asked about Pilates. Your view on that, Rich?
My view on Pilates depends on why you're doing it. Why do you do it? What's it for? Pilates is great for building a really strong core. It's great for mobility. It's great for building strength in joints. So it has an element of resistance there. So yeah, it has a great space. Does it tick all the boxes? No. But if that's the thing you enjoy doing, then it ticks a fair few boxes.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining the webinar. Hope you found that useful. Again, we'll collate the slides and questions and stuff. We've had a few more come in. We've run out of time to answer them all, but I hope you found that enjoyable. And thank you so much, Rich, for sharing some of those insights. I mean, that was brilliant. So,
I've really enjoyed it. I loved answering these questions and having a conversation around this. Obviously, as you can tell, it's super important to me, close to my heart. So yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you for asking me to join you.
amazing. Well, thanks so much, everyone. Have a great rest of Mental Health Awareness Week, and we will see you soon.
Yeah, take care. Have a great week.